I'm missing going to gigs, but there's some things I don't miss. Ahoy everybody. Oh, Willow's here. Welcome to this video. So we're in the middle of lockdown. I'm in the middle of a week's holiday. This is a week I'd booked because I was meant to be going to London to see my favourite band, The Divine Comedy, play their first 10 albums over 5 nights at the Barbican in London. Obviously that's been postponed till next year. But it got me thinking, one of the things I am missing is going to gigs. But there's some things that happen at gigs that annoy me. And here are 10 of them. So a lot of these is to do with the audience, but there are some to do with the bands themselves. So starting with the audience, first thing that really annoys me is people who talk through the gig. Don't mind just, the occasional, turn to whoever you're with and say, oh, I like this song, or, look at that, or what, But people who go to gigs and insist on just having full-on conversations, especially during the quieter songs, just because they don't know the song or don't like that song, they decide they're going to talk through it. Or, and this is particularly during support acts, people who are in the bar and they're just chatting away and not paying attention to the support act, but we'll go back to support acts in a minute. But just people talking, I pay, especially if you're in an arena gig or something like that, and you've paid 70, 80 quid for the ticket, you want to hear the band, not the person next to you having a conversation about what they did at work that day. Bless her. What are you doing? Settle down. And I also don't get why you would pay that much for a ticket and then spend the whole time chatting. Number 2, people who push to the front. If you want to be at the front, get there early. I'm 5'8", so I'm not the tallest person, so I like to be near the front. If I'm not, it's not the end of the world. I tend to go way at the back, so then you can see over people. But 9 times out of 10, I try and get as close to the front as possible. And I get there, windows open most of the time, and I plant myself at the front, and that's it. I don't move. But then you always, and I mean always, get people come along halfway through the set or after the support act, and they decide that's it. Normally they've had a drink or two and they decide, right, we want to get to the front, and they push their way through and they're nudging and elbowing, and suddenly you've gone from having a decent amount of space so you can have a bit of a boogie if you want to have a bit of a boogie, or you can just breathe and you're comfortable, and all of a sudden you're crammed. You've got people suddenly stood right in front of you if you're not bang on the front, or people pushing into the back of you. Very often they decide they want to mosh or something like that, and so you're being jostled about. You're trying to, if you are, I'm being a bigger person, if there's a smaller person in front of me, whether I know them or not, if it starts getting a bit lively, I sort of try and protect the person in front of me. So I'm more worried about that than concentrating on the gig. If you want to get to the front, get there early. Number 3 is when the crowd, unprompted, because sometimes the band asks, or the artist asks, but people shouting song requests. 99% of the time, the band you are seeing have sorted out a set list. They have it written in front of them. They are going to play those songs and those songs only. There are some exceptions. Duke Special often asks for requests. For start, some bands do just sort of change their mind mid-set and say, actually, we'll play this one now, what have you. But 99% of the time, there is a song list, a set list that the band, the artists are going to play, and if the song you're shouting out is on that set list, they will play it. If it's not, tough shit. You shouting it out all night is not going to change that. I was at a Kate Nash gig, second time I saw her, and I was sort of in the middle. I sort of found a place where there was quite a few shorter people in front of me, so I could still see nicely, but I wasn't banging the front. And there was this person stood next to me, And he was, you know, he was a bit drunk, but he was all right. But then he got chatting to some girls, and for a start, it was for chatting, was starting to annoy me. But then these girls wanted to hear Merry Happy. So after every song, and he joined in with them, they were shouting out, Merry Happy, Merry Happy. What I really loved was that Kate Nash did not play Merry Happy that night. I hope they hated it. Don't do it. Unless it's prompted, don't do it. It's not going to make any difference. Fourth thing that annoys me, this is very cathartic, people who leave early. Normally it's one of two reasons. They either want to get away because they want to beat the traffic, or they've heard the particular song they want. Sorry, my hair's annoying me. Or they've heard the particular song they want, and that's it, they go. So if their favourite song isn't left to the encore, you know, they'll go at the end of that set or whatever. But why? You've paid, I mean, you see it all the time. If you go to the O2 for a gig, you know, there's however many people it seats, 20,000 people or whatever it is. And towards the end of the show, you start seeing people just streaming out because they want to get the tube or they want to get out of the car park and avoid the rush. And I think you've paid, especially if you're there, 70, 80, 100 quid for a ticket, and you're only seeing 2/3 of a show. Just because you want to beat... Oh, it just really irritates me. I mean... All right, you might have to queue to get out of a car park, but if you're astute, you can normally get out in about 10-15 minutes. It's not majorly bad. A tube, I'm not... Because I drive, I'm not familiar with the tube, but they put plenty on. You know, there's one every 3 or 4 minutes, I think, that time of night, when there's a show on, which there is most nights. Obviously not at the moment. So, all right, there might be a big queue, but you're going to get down there and get on quickly. Oh, you know, and you've spent all that money to see the show. And then, you know, you go into the show to see them perform one song. Just listen to the bloody record. You know, why spend 100 quid just to see Robbie Williams sing Angels? And you see it all the time at a Robbie gig. When he does Angels, that's it. People leave. Whether it's the end of the show or not. Often it is, but it's not always. It might be the end of a main set and then there's encores. Sometimes they'll stick it in the middle of a set and you still see people go because they've heard him sing Angels. There's plenty of DVDs and Blu-rays you can watch where he sings Angels. He's on telly, on YouTube, singing Angels. Buy the record buy the single for $2.99 or something stupid. Well, probably nowadays you can pick up a CD single for 20p on eBay. Why spend 80 quid to see him just sing one song? Number 5. And people don't watch the support act. I can sort of understand if it's an evening gig on a school night, and people, they want to get home, have their dinner, then get ready and come out, so they come a bit later and sort of skip the support act to see the band they want. I can sort of understand that. But A, you might be missing a really great band, and B, if you're there already, as you know, plenty of people are, they still don't watch the support act. They go in the bar and have a drink and what have you. What, you know, grab your drink, fine, but come and watch the support act. Again, you know, I've discovered some great bands through support acts. I mean, I've seen the Divine Comedy as a support act, but I was already a fan. But supporting Divine Comedy, I've discovered Duke Special and Jealous of a Bird, so 2 of my favourite acts. I've had the Lottery Winners supporting Sleeper, another one of my favourite acts. The Lost Boys supporting the Blue Tones, great band, not a favourite, but a band I really like. Thomas Truax supporting Duke Special, amazing. I've since bought all his records, and so many other acts that I might not have bought their stuff, but I've really enjoyed. And then, you know, and people just dismiss them because they're a support act and don't bother watching or listening. I just don't understand. You know, I mean, maybe people don't love music as much as I love music, but I love music. I want to, you know, when I go to a gig, I want to see the music or hear the music. And if I can discover new music at the same time, excellent. And especially people who are there and don't watch for support acts. It's just so disrespectful as well. I mean, these people are probably being paid very little to be on that bill. You know, they're more there for the exposure rather than for the pay. And then, but they're singing their hearts out to entertain you. And then you're just chatting away in the bar and ignoring them. Number 6. And this is the last... Yes. This is the last audience-related annoyance. Drunks. I don't understand people who, again, pay a fortune for a ticket. I mean, all right, you know, even... You can go to gigs for £10, £15 or even less, but, you know, most now concert tickets for anybody with any success, you're talking at least 30 quid. Unless it's a really small venue, then it tends to be cheaper. But regardless, you know, why pay for a concert ticket and then just go and get so drunk that you're not going to remember any of it anyway? You're probably going to ruin loads of other people's night. You might be sick. You know, I've had people... Admittedly, this wasn't a gig, this was at the Rocky Horror Show, but I've had somebody throw up behind me and it sort of seeped down, not onto me, but sort of behind my chair, which wasn't very pleasant. I've had people spill drinks on me. You know, it's just so annoying. I just don't understand, you know, the thought process. All right, you know, go and have, if you want to have a drink or two. Occasionally I will. Most of the time I'm driving, so I don't. But occasionally, if I'm not driving, I might have a Jack Daniels just to take the edge off or something like that. But just to go and just to get so drunk that you're not going to, remember the night. And clearly the drinking is what's most important to you. In which case, just go to the pub. You don't have to pay to get into the pub. And, you know, it's designed for people to do that. I just don't understand the mentality behind it. Yeah. Why? And especially somewhere like the O2. Oh, you know, half the time it's probably because you've been dragged along by your partner and you're not really interested. But, you know, you're paying 80 quid just to go and have a drink. Why? Don't understand it. And you're somewhere like that, you're probably paying, you know, over a £5 a pint. Anyway, that's it for the audience annoyances. What annoys me from the bands? Not a lot, to be fair, but occasionally things wind me up. And the first of those, so number 7 on my list, is when you get a badly balanced set list. I don't mind bands playing new songs. I enjoy bands playing new songs, especially if it's stuff I haven't heard, because I might suddenly discover, sorry, this is really annoying me. I think it's because it's morning and I've washed it and it's all a bit fly away. I should try and stop playing with it. You know, play a new song. I might discover a track I haven't heard that I really like. But don't play too many of them all together. The worst example I've had, I went to see Take That on the Wonderland tour at the O2. I like Take That. I prefer them with Robbie, but I enjoy them anyway. The tickets suddenly came on sale and I thought, shall we go? So I bought me and Mum tickets and we went. It was a good gig. However, they'd sort of, you know, play a big hit and then another big hit, and they play 4 tracks off the new album in a row. But, you know, unless you're a hardest core fan, you're not going to know. And they're like, you know, maybe it's partly my fault for not buying that new album beforehand, because I hadn't. I've got most of their albums. In fact, I think that's the only album of theirs I don't own at the moment. It's Wonderland. But even still, you know, they were album tracks. They weren't the singles from the album. Fine, play them, but, you know, do one of those and do another hit. Do one of those and do another hit. You know, intersperse them. Don't just play 4 tracks and 70% of the audience have no idea what they are altogether. It's different, obviously, if it's a... You know, I went to see Divine Comedy at Portsmouth Wedgwood Rooms, and it was specifically a show where they were playing their new album, Regeneration. And so, you know, so they played that more or less front to back. But even then, they still interspersed it with some older stuff. But that's, you know, it was billed as that. That's what I was expecting. But when you're a big act with a huge catalogue and you're touring your latest album, fine, play the songs, but intersperse them. And it wasn't just that, they also were playing sort of album tracks from older albums, but again, unless you were a hardcore fan who knew their albums back to front, you wouldn't have known them. So, as I say, by all means play them, but mix them up with stuff that people are going to know. Also, this is... Yeah, I'm just checking this doesn't tie in with something else, but it doesn't, really. Save your good songs for the encore. Maybe, it doesn't have to be an up-tempo song. It could be, I don't mind a slower song for the encore, but, make the encore a good closer. Doesn't happen often, but occasionally, hey, come back, right, come back. Right, this is a new track. And then they just play that. All right, there might be, this is a new track. And this is our biggest hit. That's fine. But, hey, this is a new track. Good night. Oh, even if it's good, you still want something that's going to give you a bit of oomph. You can sing along to and, really end the show on a high, or, again, if it's a melancholy track, something that will be meditative, but again, that you know. So I don't want to make this sound that I don't like bands playing new tracks. I do, but put them in the right place. Number 8 is a bad choice of support. As I've already said, I've discovered some great bands as support acts. And in nearly all, probably in all those cases, they are support acts who suited the band I wanted to see. If you're a fan of a band or artist and you're going to see them live, you're more likely to be responsive to a support act who are similar in some way. Not necessarily musical style. It could be a different musical style. But if you're going to see somebody like, for example, I went to see Duke Special at, again, Portsmouth Wedgwood Rooms, and support act was Dan... it's just gone out of my head. Can't remember his name. I'll put it on the screen. But Duke Special is a very theatrical performer. He puts on a show. It's not all big lights or anything. It's just him and instruments, or him and various band members. In fact, I've only ever seen him solo or with Temperance Society Chip Bailey on drums. I've never seen him in a proper band show, but he does do them. So it's not theatrical, it's not a huge set or anything like that, but he puts on a show. It's a theatrical performance. He acts out the songs as he performs them. He, comes out into the audience and sings. One tour, in fact, I think it was this particular show I'm talking about, actually. He had a second piano on the I was going to say studio floor, on the floor, where we were all stood, and that sort of got dragged from the back, and he did 3 or 4 numbers from a piano in the middle of us all, and unamplified, and we just stood there listening to him. He's a big theatrical performance, and this Dan, he was very morose. He might have said, hello to the audience and thank you, but that was about it. And his songs were slow dirges. They might have been really good, but it was just the wrong act. When you're going to watch somebody theatrical, you don't want somebody just sat there with his head down, strumming a guitar, singing in a low voice, and not engaging with the audience. You want somebody either similar musically, and he wasn't similar musically, or with similar oomph and pizzazz. There's been other examples, or, sometimes it's just a support act who's no good, basically. Thankfully, I haven't had many of those. Kelly Osbourne supporting Robbie Williams leaps to mind. Probably the worst. Yeah, that's probably the only one that's been really terrible. I say Miss Dan. He's a Dan Michelson, might be. But you'd already know that because I will have put it on the screen earlier. He's relatively successful and he's well reviewed and everything. But he was just, the wrong person at the wrong time. The other bad one was, I think they were called Frank. They were supporting Divine Comedy at Portsmouth Pyramids on the Fantasy Eclat tour. And I think, just trying to remember. I think they were signed to Setanta, the same record label as Neil. I think they were two brothers, Irish, but they just weren't any good. You know, totally unmemorable, nothing, no real stage presence, just they weren't any good. But yeah, you know, so sometimes it happens. So try and get a support act who will compliment you and will, you know, your fans will enjoy. Number 9, when bands come on late. That really doesn't... I'm somebody who's always early for things. You know, if I'm meant to start work at 6 o'clock, I will be there at 5:45. If I'm going to a show, I will be there either bang on when doors open if there's not a facility to queue, or early to queue to get in because I don't want to be late. Even if I know that the act isn't coming on for an hour, I still want to, and even if I've got seats and I don't have to get to the front, I still want to be there early. So when it all starts late, that's just really annoying. I mean, if the support act's late, then obviously that knocks onto everything else a lot of the time. That's very irritating. But then, if everything's run on time, you know, and you've seen the timings, because they normally post them in the venue somewhere, and say support act's meant to come on at 8, and then the main act's meant to come on at 9, and play till 10:30 or what have you. And you think, okay, so you get it in your head, okay, should be home by 11 or whatever. Support act come on at 8, great, do their half hour, and then, you know, the crew come on and change the instruments and what have you and set everything up, great. Right, 5 to 9, okay, brilliant. 9:05, where are they? 9:10, you know, and you're waiting and you're waiting. And all the energy just saps, you know, because you just have everything, come on. And then you think, oh, I'm not going to get home on time. Oh, I'm going to miss the last bus, the last train, whatever. You know, it's not difficult. Just get on stage when you say you're going to be on stage. And number 10, and to be honest, this was a bit of a trying to think something to make it up to 10, I'll be honest. But when bands drag out the encore, some bands and acts and what have you nowadays just don't bother with the encore and just say, you know, this would be the encore, but here's our biggest hit, good night, which is fine. I quite enjoy the fakeness of encores nowadays, you know. We know they're coming back on. They went to see Paul McCartney at Cardiff's Millennium Stadium, and he, you know, did his massive 2.5 hour set or whatever it was, came on and did a 15-20 minute encore. He went off, and Mum sort of looked at me and said, he hasn't played yesterday yet. You know he's going to come back. You know he's not going to not play yesterday. Sure enough, he comes back on and plays yesterday and a couple of others. And, you know, ended up a 3-hour set, and it was a brilliant evening. But, you know, there's some bands, you know, they haven't played song X. You know, they're going to be back. So 99% of encores now are scripted, if you like, and they're definitely coming back. Sometimes you might get a second encore that wasn't scripted. But, yeah, fine. You know, that's all part of the fun of it. But, you know, don't piss about out there. I think 5 minutes is too long, basically. Anything under than that, you can sort of get away with. But really, you should just be going off, letting the crowd clap for a minute, and then coming back on. You know, enough time to have a drink or what have you. If you haven't decided exactly what you're playing, enough time to consult and decide what you're playing. But when they drag it out for 5 minutes, 10, well, I don't think I've ever had 10 minutes, but it's definitely been 5 minutes quite regularly. And you think, we know, you know, you're coming back. We know you're coming back. Normally, you know, occasionally it might be a big gig and they need to do something to the stage or something ready for them. That's fine. That might take a bit longer, but you can normally see what's going on and you don't mind. But if you just sat there, you know, lights are off and you, yay, more, and then that sort of fades away. And then you start again, you know, because you're thinking, well, if you start, they might not come back. I'm sure they will, but they might decide sod them then and go. And, you know, you stood there and again your energy saps and you start stamping your feet if you sat down or whatever, you know, to try and get them, and you're going, yay, more, and it gets more and more sarcastic. It doesn't need to last that long. Just go out. You know, I've had bands literally walk off, walk straight back on again. But go out, have a drink, do whatever you need to do to get ready for the encore, and come straight back on. Don't just stand there taking a piss. I mean, if you've gone for a piss, that might be why, but you know what I mean. Okay, so that's it. I didn't know how long I would rant about this, but that's a decent enough time. What annoys you at gigs? Is there anything I've mentioned that you don't mind? Is there anything I've missed? Is there anything you agree wholeheartedly with me? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye.